For 10 years, they laughed at you. The biggest banks on earth called crypto a scam, a fad, rat poison. They told you to sell, to grow up, to trust the old system. And you held the line. Now look at them. This month, a Swiss state bank started selling crypto right inside its own app. A German bank started guarding digital assets on Ripple's own technology. The biggest bank in Britain got cleared to launch a tokenized platform. And Swift, the messaging giant that moves the entire planet's money, quietly started building a blockchain settlement system of its own. Let that sink in. The gatekeepers are rebuilding their own gates out of the technology they swore would never matter. That's not adoption. That's surrender. And here's the confession they buried in their own report. Swift's so-called fast payments? 6 hours to settle. 6. And the last mile alone eats 80% of that time. Now compare that to the ledger XRP runs on. 3 to 5 seconds. Not hours. Seconds. So let me say what nobody with a fake thumbnail will tell you honestly. No, every bank isn't being forced to switch to XRP. The truth is bigger than that. They're being forced to abandon the old plumbing and rebuild on the exact kind of rails XRP was engineered for, years before any of them believed it. You were called crazy for seeing this early. You weren't crazy. You were just early. So before you scroll, let me show you every bank that just bent the knee, the 6-hour secret Swift doesn't want trending, and exactly where XRP sits when the old system finally cracks. Quick honest word before we start. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing here is a price promise. This is me breaking down the news for you, straight, like family. I'll never sell you a fake headline just to get a click. Do your own research, never risk what you can't afford to lose, and let's think through this together. We're early, and we're in it for the long haul. Let me clear the air first, because I respect you too much to feed you a fantasy. You've seen the headlines. Every bank forced to switch to XRP. Big red arrows, a nervous banker's face, the whole thing. And look, I get why it gets clicks. But it's not true, and if you repeat it at dinner, you're going to get laughed at. No regulator is marching banks over to XRP at gunpoint. Here's what's actually happening, and I promise you it's a better story, because this one is real. The banks that spent a decade mocking this technology have quietly started building on it. Not one or two, a wave of them. Trading desks, custody services, tokenization platforms, stablecoin pilots. The exact things they swore were a passing fad are now line items on their product roadmaps. And here's the key that unlocks the whole video. Adoption is not happening as one big switch to one coin. It's happening as a migration. The entire industry is picking up its money and slowly walking it off the old rails and onto digital ones. XRP doesn't need every bank to hold XRP. XRP needs the world to move to the kind of rails XRP was built for. And that migration? It just went mainstream. So when you see that clickbait title, don't get mad. Get informed. Because the honest version puts you miles ahead of the people arguing in the comments. The banks aren't switching to a ticker, they're switching to a technology. And that shift is the thing that actually matters for every XRP holder watching. Stay with me, because now I'm going to show you the receipts, one bank at a time. Let's start with the ones who mocked it loudest. Roll the tape forward to this month and watch the dominoes. Start in Switzerland. BancaStato, a state-owned cantonal bank, just switched on regulated crypto trading right inside its normal banking app. Its customers can now buy and hold crypto without ever leaving the bank they already trust. And they did it through a regulated digital asset firm called Sygnum, which now powers this for more than 25 financial institutions. Read that number again. 25. This isn't one brave bank. It's a template being copied across the continent. Now go to Germany. Deka Bank, a serious institution deep inside the German banking system, rolled out crypto trading and custody for institutions. And here's the part that matters for us. It's built on Ripple's custody technology. When a traditional German bank needs a vault for digital assets, it reached for Ripple. Let that land. Then look at Britain. HSBC, one of the largest banks on the planet, became one of the first firms cleared by the Bank of England to launch a digital asset platform in the UK's regulated sandbox, built for tokenized bonds and settlement. And HSBC's custody backbone traces right back to technology Ripple acquired. Another giant. Another Ripple thread running underneath it. Now, I'm going to be straight with you, the way I always am, because that's the whole point of this channel. Not every one of these is an XRP story. The Swiss bank is offering Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a couple of others, not XRP directly. Some of these banks are testing on other networks entirely. I could hide that from you to make the hype cleaner. I won't. Because you deserve the real picture, and the real picture is still incredible. Here's why. Even when the coin on the screen isn't XRP, the direction of travel is everything XRP holders have been predicting for years. Banks are normalizing digital assets. They're building custody. They're tokenizing. And when a bank reaches specifically for a vault, again and again, the name underneath is Ripple. That's not nothing. That's positioning, right in the plumbing before the flood. But the biggest domino isn't a bank at all. It's the network that connects them. Let me tell you about the quiet giant in this story, Swift. If you've never thought about Swift, that's kind of the point. It's the invisible network banks use to message each other about money. For 50 years, it has been the spine of global finance. And for years, our community argued about one thing. Will Swift adopt Ripple? Will Swift use XRP? I want to reframe that whole debate, because I think we've been asking a small question about a big shift. Swift recently put out a report about improving cross-border payments, and buried inside their own numbers is a confession. They proudly point out that 75% of payments over their network reach the receiving bank within 10 minutes. 10 minutes. They're proud of that. But keep reading. They admit the last mile, the part where money is actually validated and credited to the person waiting for it, eats up around 80% of the total processing time. And when you add up the real world, the domestic infrastructure delays, the risk and control checks, you land on payments that can take around 6 hours to fully settle. 6 hours. In a world where the XRP Ledger settles in 3 to 5 seconds. I'm not saying that to dunk on Swift for fun. I'm saying it because it explains everything. Swift is a messaging layer. It tells banks money should move. It was never built to actually move and settle the value itself at internet speed. And they know it. Which is exactly why reports now describe Swift working toward a hybrid model, staying as the trusted messaging layer, while blockchain-based networks handle the actual settlement underneath. Do you see what just happened? The spine of the old system just admitted, in its own words, that it needs the new rails. It's not a question of whether Swift beats XRP. Swift and settlement rails do two different jobs. Swift talks. Ledgers like XRP's settle. And the whole industry is realizing the talking part is fine, but the settling part has to change. That, right there, is the door XRP was built to walk through. Quick gut check, and I want your honest answer below. Yes or no? Do you think a top 5 global bank will settle real customer transactions on a public blockchain within the next 2 years? Just type yes or no. I read every single one, and I want to feel the pulse of this community. Now let me answer the question the clickbait dodges. Where does XRP actually fit? All right, deep breath. Let's separate hope from position, because they are not the same thing, and confusing them is how people get hurt. Hope is every bank will hold XRP, and it goes to $1,000 next week. I'm not going to sell you that. Position is different. Position is about where XRP is actually plugged in, today, in the real machinery. And the position is genuinely strong. Think about what banks need as they migrate onto digital rails. They need 3 things. They need custody, a secure vault to hold digital assets. They need settlement, a way to move value fast and final. And they need liquidity, deep enough to move real size across borders without breaking anything. Now look at where Ripple and XRP keep showing up. On custody, we just saw it. A German bank and a British giant leaning on Ripple's custody technology. On settlement and liquidity, that is the entire reason the XRP Ledger exists. Fast, final, cheap. Built to bridge one currency to another in seconds. That's not a marketing line. That's the design. And this is why Ripple's leadership, Brad Garlinghouse and Alderoty, have spent years hammering the same message. They've never pitched XRP as a lottery ticket. They've pitched it as infrastructure. Boring, essential, foundational infrastructure. The kind of thing nobody notices until suddenly the whole world runs on it. Here's the honest bottom line for you as a holder. You don't need a fake headline screaming that banks are switching to XRP. What you need to understand is quieter and stronger. As the money migrates to digital rails, XRP is positioned in the exact layers banks are reaching for. Custody, settlement, liquidity. Not guaranteed, positioned. And in a race this big, being positioned in the plumbing before the water arrives is the whole game. Do I have a price target? No, I never will. Anyone handing you a magic number is guessing. But position beats hype every single time, and XRP's position right now is real. One last thing, and it's the part I most want you to remember. Let me leave you with the truth underneath all of this, because it reframes everything. The banks are not adopting this technology because they fell in love with it. Let's be honest. They're doing it because they're afraid not to. They watched the ground shift. They saw regulation getting clearer. They saw customers, especially younger ones, start to ask why a payment should take days when their phone does everything else in seconds. And they realized something that terrifies a bank. People are starting to figure out they might not need the middleman. So the giants are doing what giants always do when a new technology threatens them. They're absorbing it. Reports describe traditional finance pulling fintech innovation inside bank-led frameworks, especially in payments and settlement. They can't beat the technology, so they're adopting it to stay relevant, to stay alive. And here's the idea I want burned into your memory before you go. There are two kinds of foundation in this world. There's the sandcastle, and there's the concrete. Old promises, marketing slides, and vague, "we're exploring blockchain" press releases. Those are sandcastles. They look impressive for an afternoon, and the tide of reality washes them flat. But a bank actually building custody on Ripple's technology? Swift actually engineering a settlement system? Rules getting written into law? That's concrete. It's set slowly. It's not flashy. But once it's poured, it holds forever. And you can build a future on top of it. Everything real in this video was concrete. Not a promise, a foundation. And you have been standing on that foundation while everyone else argued about the sandcastles. So let me bring it home. You were told this technology was a joke. You were told to sell. You were told you were early to a party that would never start. And this month, quietly, the biggest names in global finance proved you right. A Swiss bank, a German bank, a British giant, and Swift itself, rebuilding its own foundation out of the very thing they mocked. No, the banks aren't switching to XRP. The real story is bigger. The whole world is switching to the kind of rails XRP was built to run on. And XRP is already sitting in the plumbing, waiting. I know it's been a long road. The doubt, the delays, the noise. I've felt it too. But look at where we actually are. The foundation isn't cracking. It's setting. Hard. The pain doesn't last forever. It never does. We're early. The foundation is being poured. And I'd rather stand right here with you, watching the concrete set, than chase a fake headline that washes away by morning. So do your own research this week. Tune out the hype and come back tomorrow, because this story is moving fast, and I'll be right here to walk you through every piece of it. This is Crypto with BHW, where we tell it straight, with heart.